What's up, guys? Welcome back to another review, and this is episode 12 of Fairy Tail's final season, and man does it get dark. So right at the start of the episode, we get not really too much of a recap. It's sort of a recap. They left off where they were before with Mavis coming out and talking about the past, and this is where, through this whole episode, we are going to stay, is in the past. So we get a bit of a recap of what happened in Fairy Tail Zero, which I think kind of sets a record for how far back Fairy Tail goes with their recaps. But this time it makes sense because some people may not have watched Fairy Tail Zero when it came out, so this gets them up to speed on what they missed when Fairy Tail Zero came out. Which I do kind of like because I get why some people may have not watched it, because I myself actually delayed watching it because I wasn't sure when it was taking place, whether it was between the series I was currently watching or if it was after that, and it came out at a weird time, so it kind of makes sense that they do that because people would skip it if they don't want, well, in the case of me where I watched the dub, everything was all jacked up, so it makes sense and I'm kind of glad that they did that. But they reiterate the fact that Mavis cast an incomplete spell which caused her to stop aging, which was how it was presented originally, that she just stopped aging, but there is a lot more to it. But before we figure out more about this, no aging thing that Mavis is going through, we actually go into her role as the fairy tactician in the Second Trade War, I believe is what it was called, where she was not actually taken serious by a lot of the soldiers, but once she actually started giving information that made sense to them in terms of tactics, they started taking her a lot more seriously, and she apparently has a bit of a reputation with other members of the military and I guess other guilds as the fairy tactician. And during this scene, we actually see Fairy Tail members going out and fighting in this battle, and it's interesting because it actually touches on, or at least hints at, a theme that is very important later in the episode, which is the fact that all of the members of Fairy Tail, especially the big three founders, they are treating it like a game. They're counting the kills, but they're treating them as points and kind of disassociating the deaths of these wizards with the actual deaths of the wizards. Like, they're not keeping that mentality. They're treating it like a game, which is kind of dark, actually. And of course we see that this is taking quite a bit of a toll on Mavis because she's in the guild hall after the battle just wondering when this war is going to be over because she's just tired of it. And it again leads into a really interesting theme later on that is actually really, really important to her situation with the whole no aging thing, which there's a lot more to it, again, just to reiterate. Now granted, we cut way far forward to when the war is actually won and over, and it's interesting because now that the war is over, they implement, I forget what it was called, but it basically meant that none of the guilds, I guess, should, or what is it, interguild conflict treaty or something like that, where they, I guess, guilds can't fight one another or participate in any sort of conflict, which is really nice because it leads to the sort of peaceful world of Fairy Tail we have now, with all of the interguild conflict and use of wizards in battles and things like that. Good to see it's working well. Anyway, nitpicking aside, Mavis goes out for a walk in the forest and runs across Zeref again. And it's funny because Zeref, of course, we learned, has the Curse of Ongselem, where any life he cares about will quickly be snuffed out. It's the contradiction. And the more he cares about life, the more life around him perishes. And with Mavis, she runs up, gives him a hug, and thanks him for everything. They've become a guild now. He has lost track of time because while they are sitting in a field talking, Mavis brings up the fact that Yuri and his wife are about to have their kid, and Zeref's like, he's a child himself, and it's like, it's been a long time, Zeref, it's been really long. And that, of course, leads Mavis to bring up the fact that maybe he doesn't remember because she hasn't aged, and she tells him why she's not aging and what exactly happened, and you can see the look on Zeref's face where he clearly thinks that something terrible has happened. And just before this big reveal moment, it is kind of funny because he puts his head against Mavis's, and she's just completely embarrassed. She blushes, she freaks out, but then we have the serious moment. And the serious moment is that in the moment that in that brief moment in Fairy Tail Zero where Mavis casts that unfinished spell, she makes the choice of life or death, and as a result, she has the Curse of Ongselem, just like Zeref does. And that means that not only is she not aging, she will never die, and the more that she cares about life, the more life around her will perish, which is terrible for somebody like Mavis. Now, granted, she points out the fact that she hasn't had people dying around her already, and that doesn't seem to be a problem. Maybe, Zeref's wrong. There's no way, because her big argument is people haven't died around her. And Zeref brings up the interesting point that during the war, her context and care for life may have been altered. And we kind of had that theme early on where they're treating the kills of the war as points. And that seems to have kind of set into Mavis as well, because her care for life was skewed due to the war, and so was everybody else's. Of course, these words from Zeref break her heart, and she's not having any of it, and she leaves as quickly as possible. She now believes all of the cruel things, all the stories about Zeref where he's a cruel person, and yeah, as a result, she ends up running back into town. Fortunately, or rather unfortunately, right around the time that Yuri's wife is giving birth to Makarov. So definitely kind of a tone shift there. She goes from very clearly distraught and crying to this. Cute! And it really does work for us as the viewers, because you get that tone shift suddenly of, oh, she's happy again, this is back to a happy moment, but in the back of our minds, we know that, well, maybe Zeref is right, and that's kind of concerning. At least if you're following along, it's very concerning because, well, what's going to happen if what Zeref said is true? What's going to happen? Well, we find out what happens. So Yuri's wife, Rita, asks Mavis to name her son, and of course she names him Makarov, which we learn is actually a king out of a book she had read. So that's kind of neat that we get to know now where Makarov's name comes from. He was named after Mavis, or named by Mavis, not after Mavis, named by Mavis. So that's pretty cool. And it's this really sweet and touching moment, but we also now see that Mavis's context or perception of life and her care for life is changed by the fact that she is now named a newly born child, and as a result, Rita dies, Yuri's wife. And that is the first we see of this curse in action, and well, at least through Mavis. We've seen the curse in action by Zeref before, but not by Mavis, and boy, it's pretty distressing. And I'm just going to throw this out here for all the dub haters who are in the audience. So somebody pointed out, and I rewatched this episode, and I completely agree, the scream in the dub of Mavis realizing the curse that she has been stricken with is bone-chilling. It's perfect for the context of this scene. I mean, just think of, before I play it, listen to her scream in the context of she will never age, she will never die, and those she cares about most will die around her if she cares about them too much. And now listen to that. Really does carry a lot of weight, doesn't it? Like, oh my god. So of course, upon realizing that she is in fact cursed the same way Zeref is, she leaves the guild hall and essentially just wanders around for about a year. And we also see during this time a bunch of people die because she cares about life. A bunch of animals die. There's this entire really horrifying scene where you see the results of her curse. It kills a forest, you see birds falling out of the sky, there's animals dying, and she is just a wreck. And then after that year, she comes across Zeref again, or in fact, this case, Zeref comes across her. And she hasn't eaten in a year and a half, and she's just been wandering, and she's still not dead, and it's just, she's not in a good state. And once Zeref comes along, we start hearing about all of his plans. He's starting to build the Alvarez Empire. He's known as Emperor Spriggan. He started working on the Aetherius, or the whatever they're called, the Tartaros Ark. All of those monsters, we see that he started working on those. In a hopes that maybe they will have the power to kill him, which we find out, of course, that they don't. They barely had the power to take out Fairy Tail, and even then they failed. So, yeah, that plan clearly didn't happen, but we have, the ability to see ahead, whereas he doesn't know yet. But he's now explaining what the Curse of Ongselem is like. He's clearly very contradictory, even in his own speech, and as he starts talking to Mavis, we see that because of his contradiction, he kind of starts breaking down mentally and emotionally in a lot of ways. And it's kind of interesting to see Zeref in this particular state. We've never seen him in this sort of emotional state after we see him in the flashback. It's weird to see. Of course, Mavis takes pity on him and gives him a hug, and it's really bizarre the way that this relationship is, but they clearly both want to care about one another, and they do care about one another, but then we get even more contradiction. Because in this forest filled with death due to the two of them being there, we have this very nice moment where we see that Zareth and Mavis clearly care about one another, and in the case of Zareth, he cares too much for Mavis, and so even in her state of immortality and not being able to die due to the curse, she sort of dies. I'm saying sort of dies because I don't know what they're going to do next episode, but it seems like he's going to have to take her back to the Fairy Tale Guild, and obviously she's not dead because she's still showing up as a projection for everybody, so I don't know if like she's actually dead or if she's sort of dead but not dead. I really don't know how this curse works exactly, though she says in the episode that she died, so I'm guessing that maybe there's something else we are not aware of yet. I'm recording this review before I put out the next review, or before recording or the reaction, so I don't know yet. So we're left with all these questions, and even the preview doesn't spoil anything, really, so I watched it anyway because it's part of the episode. Don't yell at me for watching the previews, it's getting old. Point being, we don't know what's going on now. We don't know what the state is of Mavis, really. She's dead, but is she? What is Fairy Heart? We're not given any information about what Fairy Heart is at all. So I'm still kind of angry about that because the whole point of the backstory was, I thought, to tell us what Fairy Heart was, and it didn't. But anyway, that was the episode, and it was definitely one of the more dark episodes, especially dark considering like most of the stuff that we see with Mavis is fairly lighthearted, and this was not lighthearted in any way. This just like pulled the sheet off. It was just like darkness, everything. So definitely a tearjerker and a bit of a heartstring pulling episode, and I loved every minute of it. Hope you guys did too, and if you guys want to leave a comment letting me know what you guys thought of this review, what you thought of the episode, let me know in the comment section, and otherwise like and subscribe. Again, I hope you guys are really liking this new format. I'm whittling it down and trying to get... I'm not going into a ton of detail with the episode, but I am getting into theming, and I want to get into that kind of stuff, so I hope you guys are enjoying that. And apart from that, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next video. Make sure to be there, and have a good one.